Hey there, YouTubers. Me again. Today we are going to put new perches on a A-body 8 3/4 differential. For those of you who don't know what an A-body is now, I think there's A and B and C and D, E, F, G on Chevrolets and stuff like that, GMCs, things like that. This is Mopar, Mother Mopar. Okay, Mother Mopar's A-body is a Dart, Duster, Valiant, Demon, the smaller compact models of the Mopar family. A-bodies, a lot of them do not come with 8 3/4, so this is kind of a rarity. And this one is I do believe this is an original. And for whatever reason, somebody took the perches off it. It may have been me. To move them inward, outward. If you're going to do a swap, you want to put fatter tires, you can move the perches in a little bit and relocate your leaf springs. That is a doable thing. Okay? I opted to go with brand new perches. I have reused the old ones before. You can cut them off, you cut them nice and neat, or just grind the welds on them. You can go ahead and reuse the old ones. But in this case, brand new ones were like 15 bucks. So I'm like, well, why screw around with it? I evidently used these for something else. And as you can tell, well, you probably don't have a real good view of it, but there's a couple of scars here where I took the old ones off. And I don't really know why, because they were in the right place by the looks of things. But who knows why I do the things that I do. Or somebody else may have done it when I bought it from a swap meet or something. Don't really remember. But we're going to put brandy new ones on this one. And on an A-body Mopar, these have to be 43 inches from center to center. So before we can measure center, now we can guesstimate. We can just go, okay, center-ish, yeah, center-ish. Okay, this one's at like 43 and a half. And we can do it that way. And you'll probably be close enough. But close enough ain't good enough. Not for me, anyway. I don't like to measure, but I hate to do things. I'm pretty darn good at doing things by eye, and I get away with it a lot. But when I have the ability, and since everything's right here in the open, if I'm under a car trying to weld and stuff, close enough's close enough. But when you've got it right here in front of your face, and you got it up where you can work on it, and everything's so easy to access, we're going to do it the right way. Alright, so what is the right way, Dave? I'm so glad you asked. The right way is we're going to figure out where center is on the perch. We're going to make a little mark on each side. And because these are brand new, the cool thing about it is there's no play. Okay, when you reuse the old ones, sometimes they'll rock side to side, so now you got to measure both ends to make sure it's not cattywampus, you know what I mean? But with these brand new ones, they fit nice and tight. This is going to be a treat. So let's go ahead and find center on those before we do anything else. And then we're going to clean this up for welding. And if you'll notice, the welding would be under here, right? It's going to be down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do all our measuring with it like this. And with our marks, we're going to get measured up. And then we're going to go ahead and do some tack welds on the corners. And then we're going to flip it over and we'll finish welding. Now, there's a few things we need to know once we start to put it together, and I'll go over that. Things like which end is up. It's round, right? How do you know which end is up? Now in this case we have little tabs and stuff. That's kind of a dead giveaway, you know, tabs for the brake lines and what have you. And we have a flat spot here, so that's a dead giveaway if you're familiar with Mopars. But if you're not familiar with Mopars, you might think maybe this flat spot goes underneath, on the bottom, right? And if it's a truck, that would be the case. This is a car, all right? Well, I guess we'll go over it now since I'm talking about it. Now, over here, I guess I better bring you over here. So come here. Right here, you'll notice a little hole. See it? Can't quite get my pinky in there. That is a vent. If you put that on the bottom, it's going to leak all over the place because the vent it's got a one-way valve, so if it does tip upside down, it's supposed to stop it. But I don't know how many one-way valves you're familiar with, but 90% of the time they fail. So this has a one-way valve, and then some of them have a nipple. I think on the Mopars they just have a little cap. So that's really probably all that is. So it would probably leak. But some of them they'll have a hose going up into the car or whatever. And you can do it either way. It's just a vent. You can put you just screw a nipple in there and run a hose. You'll be fine. or you can use the actual Mopar one-way valve that they have for these. But that's your dead giveaways, is this hole for the vent and then the two flat spots on the ends, and then you'll know which end is up. So let's go ahead and get the perches marked so we know which end is up, so we know where 43 is going to be. Get this cleaned up with some grinding of the paint and yuck that's on this rear end, and then we'll talk about getting it lined up and do some welding. Here's my perch. I like to use a square, and I paid way too much money for this square when I was a kid. I was like 19 years old, and I was a machine tool apprentice, and they sent me to the store to buy a square, and you can buy them at like Home Depot or Lowe's for, you know, $6, or maybe Harbor Freight. They didn't have Harbor Freight back then, not that I knew of anyway. I bought this at the machinist place, and it's a precision, you know, it's precision, and it's pretty darn good. I mean, I've had it since I was 19, and I'm 60 now, so you figure, you do the math. But you don't have to spend that much money on one. It was like $110, and that was back in 1980 something. All right, well anyway, put it on a flat surface. Take your perch, put it on a flat surface. Push your square down. Now, see, this one's rocking a little bit, so we got to make sure we're where we want to be. All right. Tighten it up. Whatever reason, that looks like I am past it. So let's try that again. That's right where it wants to be. That's really weird, because it's an optical conclusion. Oh, maybe that's why. It's an optical illusion. Okay, that's accurate. Okay, so where are we? We're at 2.5 by the looks of things. Actually, a tiny bit over 2.5. So we got to do the math. So it's 2 9/16. I had to sit there and count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 2 9/16. So what is half of 2 9/16? I'm the worst person in the world at math. Okay? So if I can do this, you can do this. 9/16, if you look up the decimal equivalent, and you can find out on a computer, is 5625. So it's 0.5625. Okay, you divide that in half, it comes out 2812. Okay, so 0.2812, which is actually 9/32. Okay, and so of course we've got 2 inches, so it's got to become 1 inches. So we want 9/32, which on this particular scale we do have 30 seconds. So we're going to flip this around. I got this flipped around, so we have 1. We're on the 30 seconds, okay? And we want 9/32. Fortunately, this one's marked. There's 8 right there, okay? So we're just going to go to the line after the 8. Tighten that up. And that should be half, okay? Now, the way to double check that is we're going to get my pencil. Would actually be better. I've got a Sharpie, but that's going to be a fat line. This is actually scribing a little line for me. It's got a scribe. Let's do that. Let's do the scribe. So here we go. We got this in place. Let's scribe a line. Okay. There actually seems to be a knit line on this already. Now, to check to make sure our numbers are correct, we're going to flip this around. And look, we are not correct in my deductions, or where I scribed my line. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. Why we'd want to skin a cat, I don't know. So we're going to go ahead and scribe that line. I must have been off in my math or in my scale reading or something. Oh, probably because this isn't square. That's probably my reading there. Alright, so now I've got 2 scribed lines. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put my scale on there again. But now, this is where close enough is good, because we've got about, let's see, about 1/8 of an inch. These 2 lines are 1/8 of an inch apart. See, you don't need math, you just got to figure it out. But anyway, needs to finish apart. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to divide the difference. So that would be a 16th. I'm not even probably going to use the scale. There's a 16th right there. Oh, do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in with a 16th, and I'm going to make a mark. If I can get my Sharpie open, here we go. I'm going to make a mark in the middle. Actually, this would work right here. There we go. We're going to put a mark right in the middle there. All right. And then now that I've got my mark, let me do one over here. Now I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to run it across those two lines. Again, because the line is fairly fat, we're going to divide the difference. Well, actually, nope, I shouldn't divide the difference. That was dumb. My bad. Because I'm making a mark against the ruler, we're going to put a line exactly on the bottom of these two lines. So scratch that first statement. See, as you can see, nobody's perfect. Even in my figuring, while I'm trying to show you, I can make mistakes too. So we are just going to keep on plugging away. All right, now we got to kind of, this is, unfortunately, I'm going to probably get something more flexible, maybe a tape or something. And that way we'll know exactly where our center line is. And now what we can do with this, to make life easier, is we know where our lines are now, right? So I'm going to get my ruler. It keeps falling off my sawhorse here. And we're going to go put this on there, like that. We're going to get the other one. We're going to go ahead and make a mark. Check both sides. Not seeing it on that side. Okay. So once you've confirmed both sides, then we can go ahead and draw the line again. Okay, now I'm going to take a piece of tape. I'm going to stretch it across the line. And there you go. I have a perfect line. This is going to be the center right here on the tape. Of course, I guess we could leave the tape there because we're not going to be welding in that area, or I could just draw another line, but I think I'll leave the tape on there. It's a little bit more noticeable, and we'll double check the tape here in a minute. Check 15 times, cut once. Actually, we're not doing any cutting, but we want to make sure we line this up. And actually, if you're plus or minus, I'm going to say a 1/4 inch on this, you're probably okay, but we want it as close as we can get since we're going to be using scale measurements. You know, you want to make sure your error is as limited as can be. So let's get the scale one more time. Come on. Well, you're sure not acting like a high-end scale today. There we go. All right. Going to take it from this side. My apologize if you're not being able to see that very well. My arm is probably in the way. The problem too is these are not exactly square. That's dead on the tape right there. And that is dead on the tape right there. So there we go. So with all my fussing and fighting with fat lines and what have you, dead on the tape, dead on the tape. For you to see, dead on the tape, dead on the tape line. So we're just going to go with the tape line. So there you go. Even though I made myself look like an idiot, I'm really not. So we're just going to use that line on the tape for the line that we want. Just so I don't waste a lot of time grinding stuff I don't need to grind, I'm going to take a quick measurement of 43 on this here thing and center it. So we need to come in, well, we're going to be on either side of 43. So we're going to come in a couple of inches. We're going to clean this area here on this. So let's get started. Well, let's see where we're going to be. That's the bottom. That's the top. So we're going to be here. All right. Now, to make my life easier, I'm going to stick it in the saddles, because it'll hold it in place for me. Here we go. All right. Let's get to grinding. Now, be careful you don't accidentally weld on the wrong end. So we're going to rotate this. And make sure that my grinding goes into, barely on this one. In fact, I think I'm going to touch this one up a little bit. It's just barely hanging on that one. This one, we're good. So let's just go ahead and touch this up a little bit right here. First thing I want to do is determine center, okay, which we did with the tape. Okay. So we're going to go from here to here, and we need to be 43 in the center. And I am not. So they have to come out a little bit, which means I might have to do a little more grinding. Alright. So that's almost there. Actually, yep, I am there. Okay, so the perches are nice. Let's check the back side just to be safe. Yep, okay. So we're good there. Now we have to make sure we're square here, right? We're going to use these two edges because they're flat. We're going to measure from here to here. And I've got 3, just a little over 3 1/4. And then over here, I've got about 3 inch even. Okay? So we need to come this way a little bit. Okay? And we're just trying to make it even, so we got, all right. We're getting there. Oh, this one's moving with me. All right. So we're just going to keep going. 3/8. Still 3 1/4. But now where's my center line? Oh, still pretty good. Okay. Now we want to make sure we're parallel here. You can adjust. When I did trucks, a lot of times you would move your pinion angles quite a bit because of the huge angles that sometimes the engine and the rear end would have because trucks are lifted. On this, it's a car. Most of them start out pretty darn level, and then when they get a little bit of spring wrap, they kind of line up with the transmission, which is what you want. So we're going to just kind of put this one at level, maybe a tiny bit upwards, but I'm going to probably just put it right at level. Put a level on it. Now I'm not setting the level across the top here because this is not flat, but I'm going to set it across the top of the 2 bolts there. And then we're just going to turn this a little bit until it gets level. And there we are. And that should be pretty much level. Now, don't touch anything. I'm going to go ahead and tack each one of these perches. I got them, it took me forever. That's why I shut the camera off. It's like I didn't think you'd want to watch that forever. But I'm going to sit here and tack all of these. And then we got to flip it over and finish welding. Okie dokie. Let that cool for a second. We'll flip this thing over and we'll finish weld those perches in. Still double check before. Actually, let's double check, make sure we're still level. Yep. All right. Now I'd like to keep it like that and make it ideal, but it wants to roll. Let me go find something to jam in here so it won't roll on me. go ahead and clean this bad boy up to make it look nice, and then we can send her on down the road. Although I have a dead battery. Woo! Imagine that. Last but not least, I'm going to wipe it down with some acetone. Mineral spirits. I don't know why I got acetone on the brain. Wipe it down with some mineral spirits, and I'm going to spray bomb it. This is just going to take off all the grease and grime from my hands, and any dust and dirt that accumulated from our work here. This is the rear end, not body of a car after doing hours and hours and hours of body work, so we're not spending the big dollars and using body cleaners and all that good stuff. We're just going to use some mineral spirits to wipe her down. So that's what it feels like to be bald. There you go, all prettied up and ready to go out the door. I don't know if this taught you anything, but if you enjoyed this video, or if it did teach you anything, how meticulous it is trying to line stuff up, yeah, that's what I learned too. I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe. See ya.